good visit, or is it going to be a crushing, heart-wrenching visit? And as I said, no one can predict that. Persons living with dementia cannot control their behaviors. I often think that if they could write on their foreheads, "It's the disease, not me." So every time you look at them, you remember they are not doing this on purpose. They're not doing it to make you mad. They're not trying to get back at you because you didn't come to visit an hour earlier than you should have. They're not doing anything intentionally. It's the disease acting out, not them. Question?
Are you using the term dementia and Alzheimer's interchangeably?
I am. And yet there is a difference. I know, but I've kind of given up fighting that battle because even the docs use it interchangeably. The Alzheimer's Association uses it interchangeably, so I have given up that fight. There is a difference. Dementia is nothing more than I shouldn't say nothing more, but it is a group of symptoms. It is not a disease. Alzheimer's is a disease. Vascular dementia is a disease. Lewy body is a disease. Parkinsonia dementia is a disease. Frontal temporal dementia is a disease. Dementia itself is a group of symptoms. That's it. But yet, the healthcare, everybody uses the term interchangeably. So as I said, I have succumbed. I no longer fight it. But a good point. So what causes these changes in the behavior? Absolutely, it's the dying, killing off of the neurons, the brain cells. Every day, your loved one is losing more and more brain cells. That's what Alzheimer's, that's what all those diseases I mentioned do to the brain. They kill the brain cells or the neurons. Two things that we know happen: buildup, plaque, amyloid plaque buildup, and then you have the buildup of tau neurofibrillary tangles. Those are the two things that Dr. Alzheimer's described back in 1906, and today in 2026, we know those are the two culprits that changes the makeup of the brain. And those two things kill off the neurons. It makes, by killing off the neurons, thank heavens we have billions of them, because it takes years. They're now saying 15 to 20 years before symptoms start to show to loved ones. That's a long time. But they're losing neurons, and so as they lose neurons, they're going to have some changes in their ability. Going to get confused, they're going to lose their keys, they're going to maybe not drive as safely, they're going to pay somebody 3 times in a month instead of once, or they're going to forget to pay the bills for somebody for 2 or 3 months. Those are the changes that we see. They may have trouble knowing what's real, what's safe, and what is right, the right thing for them to do. They get confused. We know they lose short-term memory first. That goes very quickly. They can't tell you what they did at Christmas. They can tell you what they did at Christmas as a child, or maybe when you were first married. But what they did 2 months ago, 3 months ago now, they can't tell you. So, as I said, those are some of the changes that we see most frequently. So behaviors are a form of communication. In fact, that's what we think. A lot of the behaviors is their ability, the only way that they can express themselves. Words, they lose the meaning of words, and they lose the ability to communicate well. So they can't form those sentences to tell you how they're feeling. They can't find those words to express that they're hungry, or they're tired, or they're too hot, or they're too cold. they can't express that, and so they act out. And so we say it is a means and can be a means of them trying to communicate something to you. So they're reacting to what they think, feel, or need from the people around them and the world around them. And so you as a caregiver, you as a loved one must connect with them. And part of that is you have to go into, and I talked about this last time, but it is so important when we're talking about behaviors. You have to go into their world because that's the only world they know. And that world is no longer your world. They can't come to you, but you can go to them. And I used to call this, I'm going to Never Never Land with my mom. I'll be talking about ridiculous things like, sure, your father's going to be at breakfast or at dinner tonight when he passed away 23 years ago. But in her world, she wanted her father at dinner that night. And so in order to communicate, in order to connect with them, in order to keep them happy and content so that behaviors don't spring up as often, we have to go into their world and meet them where they're at. And that's part of all how you deal with behaviors. The behaviors are not related to a person's true feelings about anything. It doesn't always make sense, but to them, it's very real, and that's what you have to understand. It's real to them, just as you know it absolutely is impossible. I knew it's impossible for her father to be at dinner that night. Impossible. For 23 years, it was impossible. But to her, it was just as real as I knew it wasn't real. And that's what you have to work with. That's what you have to meet your loved one at. That's where you have to go if you want to connect with them. Otherwise, you spin in your world and they spin in their world and you never connect. So you have to go to them and you have to connect with them in order to have a feeling of being with your loved one. So, common related, dementia-related behavior. Anxiety and agitation are very common. The person may show feelings of restlessness. We have oftentimes where they go through stages or a period of wandering, walking. They'll pace and pace and pace. Whether it's calming to them, whether it relieves restlessness, whether it relieves anxiety, we don't know. But that's important for them to do if they're able and safe to do it. Aggression and anger. The person may have verbal or physical outbursts. And even though you know it's not real, if they accuse you of something, you just say, you address their emotions, especially if they're angry. You say, I know you're mad. I know you're angry. By addressing those feelings, by addressing those emotions, it automatically starts to decrease the behavior. They can't get as mad if you're agreeing with them. But if you say, there's absolutely no reason for you to be angry, that didn't happen, it's not going to go over very well, and they're not going to believe you, because in their world, it's happening and they're mad. Suspicion and delusions. I said earlier, my mom's behaviors didn't change, but she did have visual hallucinations for probably a period of about 6, 7 months, 8 months. And these hallucinations were so real to her. I'll never forget the first time We were sitting in her living room. She was still independent living. And she said, "See those people on the couch? They've been here all day, and they won't talk to me. I ask them who they are, and they won't say a word to me." And she totally believed and saw these people. And what frustrated her the most is they wouldn't talk to her. They wouldn't answer her questions. It was a problem, but it became a big problem when they started going into her bedroom and getting into bed with her. Then she wasn't sleeping. She wasn't eating. And we had to take some more steps to calm that down because she couldn't go on like that. So do hallucinations, whether visual or verbal, some people hear things. My mom just saw people, and 2 or 3 of them all the time. And as I said, that's not a real common behavior. It occurs, they say, in about 16 to 18% of the people that have Alzheimer's, but it does occur. None of these behaviors last forever. Just when you think you have a handle on how to interact, how to deal with them, they move on to something else. And then all of a sudden, that's not the problem that you're facing when you're with your loved one. Getting lost or wandering, this definitely happens. It's one of the big signs about taking the driver keys away so they can't drive, is they get lost. They're going somewhere, they're going to their daughter's home, and pretty soon the daughter calls and says, "Where's mom?" "Well, she left. She should have been there an hour and a half ago." "Well, she's still not here." And she gets lost in driving. They get to a stop sign, they get to a red light. They forget, do I go right? Do I go left? Do I go straight? They don't know where they're going. So all of these are common behaviors that do occur at times as you go through this process. A knowledge check, wandering only happens in the early stages of the disease, and we know that is false. Wandering can happen at any stage of the disease as long as they are, of course, mobile. 6 in 10 individuals will wander pace at some point during this disease. So it is a very common behavior that individuals have on this journey. And so with wandering, the number one thing we have to worry about as caregivers of a loved one with this disease is safety. Are they wandering? Are they pacing in a safe area? Are they going to get out? You know, my mom was in independent assisted living until she started to wander, and then she needed to be in a locked unit. I got a call one night at midnight, "Is your mom with you?" It's like, "No, she should be in her apartment." Well, she's not. When they did the bed check, she wasn't there. And so she had wandered off. So it was time then she needed to go into a locked facility because wandering, she can't be down the street at midnight wandering in January. So it becomes a problem that you need to address. So I mentioned earlier, one of the things we're going to talk about are triggers. What can set off a behavior? If you are having some issues with behaviors with your loved one, I really recommend using, you can call it a journal, a piece of paper, whatever, so that you kind of write down. You think you're going to remember. You know, if you're going to the doctor and you're going to tell him about, yeah, my wife really, or my husband really he's starting or she's starting to do this, first thing the doctor's going to say is, "Well, how often?" "Well, a few times." They want specifics. So if you can write down and say, "All right, this month it happened 5 times, or it happened 10 times." it also gives you an idea by writing down time it happened. Was there something had happened going on before it? Was there something that might have triggered it? Was it time of day? Late morning? Were they hungry because they hadn't eaten since an early breakfast? Middle of the afternoon, do they need a timeout? Do they need a respite? Do they need a resting period? Maybe they're tired at that time. And the only way they can express it is to act out, because they can't formulate the words, they can't tell you what or how they're feeling. And so the only way they can communicate is by acting out. By keeping that little journal, by keeping that, all of a sudden you're going to say, gee, I didn't realize, but it's late morning. It seems like it always happens around late morning. And then you start to problem solve it. You start to say, all right, is it food? Is it just they need a little time out? Are they tired from morning activities? Do I need a mid-morning snack? In the afternoon, do they need a quiet place to rest a little bit so that they don't act out at 3, 4, 5 o'clock at night in the afternoon? So you, by putting it down, paper and pencil, computer, whatever, it allows you to kind of realize what's going on and what's happening. And sometimes we overlook those triggers that are occurring. Physical triggers, this can result from pain, discomfort, or other physical needs being met. They can't tell you they're thirsty. They can't tell you they're hungry. They can't tell you they're tired. They can't tell you they're in pain. So we have to be the observer to watch and note, are they rubbing their knee? Are they rubbing their abdomen? When they go to get up, are they grimacing? Do their knees hurt? Their hips hurt? Did they hurt themselves? They can't tell us, but we need to observe. When they move, what facial expressions are they making? If you help them up and you take their arm, are they pulling away or shrugging? Are they reacting to that? Social, this can include being around people who stress or bother the person. Oftentimes we see this, especially at holiday times. I always warn caregivers at the holidays especially. We have Passover, we have Easter coming up, we have holidays coming up. And yes, you want the family to get together. You want friends, you want them to be able to attend possibly and enjoy just like they used to do over the years. However, sometimes it's too much for them. And so they start to act out because they're overstimulated. We have overstimulation and we have boredom. Both are not good for an Alzheimer's person. Overstimulation, you need to cut it down. So we start to look at, are there areas that you can take them into a room where just 1 or 2 family members can go in and visit at a time, instead of all 10 of you in one room with laughter, maybe grandkids running around, music going, conversation. They don't know, are they talking to me? They start to feel very unsafe, and all they want to do is get out of there. And they'll say, I want to go home, I want to go home. Well, this is your home, or we are at your home. They don't care, they want to go home. They want to get out of there because they don't feel safe. So socialization is good. They need socialization. We're human beings. Human beings are social animals. They need it, but they don't need too many people. It makes them feel very unsafe because they don't know what they're doing. All of a sudden, everyone's a stranger. They don't know where they're at. They don't recognize anyone or any place that they're at. All they want to do is go home, where they know they will feel safe. Environmental, what's happening around them? Are they too hot? Are they too cold? Are they sitting on something? Are their clothes comfortable, not comfortable? We have to kind of watch for signs that tell us, even though they can't speak the words, but they tell us, they're triggers, that the person is starting to get restless, starting to get upset. You know something is going to happen. And so you want to intervene before they escalate that into an outburst or throwing something or yelling or getting all upset. Personal, as I said, from inside the person, such as feelings they may be experiencing that we don't know. We don't know what they're thinking. That's one of the hardest things. You can't read them anymore. If you've been married 40, 50, 60, 70 years, you usually can read that person, but not with Alzheimer's. That person no longer can be read because they're not giving out the same signals that they did over all those years of marriage. And so you have to look for new signals that show that they're starting to get upset. And most of the time it starts with some restlessness. You can see them starting to work up, and that's when you need to intervene to shut it down. And we'll talk about ways to do that. Non-medical approaches always come first. We don't want to use medications. I am not a pill pusher. Going back to my mom, when she had those visual hallucinations, she wasn't eating, she was losing weight, she wasn't eating. We had to give her some medication to subdue those hallucinations, and it worked. And she didn't have to stay on it that long, but it was the only way to care for her health while she was experiencing these visual. We couldn't remove the visual hallucinations any other way except through some medication. So we want to focus on physical and emotional comfort. We want to help identify and meet their needs. You know your loved one the best. If it's a parent, I knew my mother very well over all the years that she raised me. We were super close, so I knew her very well. You know your grandparents, you know your parents, you know your spouses. You are the ones that can kind of figure out a little bit what their needs might be. And then we can hope to manage the behaviors and reduce them by 4 steps. Number 1, detect and connect, and we'll talk about each one of these. Take care of physical needs, take care of emotional needs, and review and plan for the next time. So the first step, detect and connect. Use what you know about the person to try and understand their needs or feelings. As I said earlier, you know them best. Join the person in their reality. It is so important to do. Let them know you're with them. Let them know you are connected to them. Let them know you believe them. You know they're mad. You know they're sad. Let them know you understand. That's the first way to start to de-escalate a situation, is letting them know, I know you're mad. I know you're sad. I'd be mad too. I'd be sad too if that happened to me. Whatever it is, you believe them. They need to hear that, because as they go on this journey, they get a lot of no, no, no. You can't do this. You can't drive. You can't do this. You got to go here. All of a sudden, they have very little control over their lives. And they need to know that you believe them, that yes, their feelings and their beliefs are just fine with you. You accept them and you believe them, and you're here for them. Very important to get across to them. Approach the person calmly, quietly and with respect always. Make sure you have their attention. I talked about this last time, eyeball to eyeball. You don't talk to them behind them. You don't walk into the room and they're the only one in the room, but you start talking to them. They won't know you're necessarily talking to them. They may not even hear you. They may not even be listening to what somebody's talking and saying. So you need their attention if you're going to talk to them. And I call that eyeball to eyeball. We talked about this last time, non-verbals. Everything is just fine, even if they start to escalate and you can tell they're getting mad and they're going to start to cry or they're going to start to yell. Your nonverbals have to say, hey, calm, cool, and collected, everything is just fine. Because if you start to get anxious, they're going to pick up on that and even get more anxious, and it's going to rise faster. So you've got to nonverbals, life is just beautiful, and everything's fine, and we are just okay. You and me, we are great. And that's what you have to show them as they are starting to escalate. Your nonverbals have to try to start them to de-escalate, that everything's fine. If you start to show the fists and the clenching and, oh boy, here it comes, I know we're going to go through this again. No. Cool, calm, and collected is the way to go. And you don't correct. They don't understand what they're saying, totally. They don't. They don't understand what they say isn't real. So correcting them, some people think that if I correct them, I'm going to keep them in my world, the real world, longer. Doesn't work that way with an Alzheimer's patient. You're wasting your breath. You will never win an argument with somebody with Alzheimer's, ever, 100% guaranteed, ever. You can't, because they're not logically thinking anymore. Logic goes out the window with Alzheimer's. So they are in their world, whatever they say it is, that's what it is. And that's what you have to work with when you're with them. That's how you connect with them. Number 2, take care of their physical needs. Are there triggers? Check what may be causing physical discomfort. Is it clothing? Are they hungry? Is it too much activity in the room? They're overstimulated. Are they bored? In middle stage especially, they want to be busy. They want to do things. They want to be productive. They don't want to sit and do nothing, but they just don't know what to do. So you need to help them to do some activities. Take a walk, do puzzles, do what they are still capable of doing within their ability. You don't want something so hard that they start to get frustrated because they can't do it. That's defeating the purpose. So you want something that they're able to still do and be productive. And thank them for what a big help you've been. Wow, look how fast we did that puzzle. You and me together, what a team. We're going to set a record on how fast we did that puzzle. And what a great job we did. Thank you for all your help. You want to make them appreciated. You want to respect them for what they are still able to do. You want to treat them like an adult. But as I said, boredom is just as bad as overstimulation. If there's any problems that you're thinking there is pain or any medical problems, sudden changes do not occur with Alzheimer's. So if one morning they can get dressed, Thursday morning they got dressed by themselves. Friday morning, they can't even begin to put their shirt or blouse on. Don't know top from bottom. They don't know where the pants, they can't do it. That's a red flag. That's not Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is that gradual downward slope. Something is usually going on if it's a sudden change in behavior, sudden change in their ability. And that red flag, oftentimes UTI, upper respiratory, flu, whatever. Most of the time, it's a UTI. Help with emotional needs. What possible emotions are there, could they have to something that's happening? If you go to, maybe they have music, you go to a little band that comes in to play and you sit with your loved one and all of a sudden you see them really upset. Maybe something from a long time ago is upsetting them, is making them feel sad. Maybe leaving or going to another place, or just moving where you're out from the crowd and you sit on more of the outskirts of the room might placate them and make them feel better. We can't always understand what they're feeling, but we can respect it, we can address it, and we can work with it, not against it. Let them know you're there, telling them they are safe, they are loved. You are there with them, you are always going to love and be with them. We're a team, we're a family, we stick together. Letting them know that over and over again. Remember, short-term memory goes. So if you tell them that every minute, it's not too much for somebody with Alzheimer's well on the journey. But letting them know they're safe, they are loved, you are not going anywhere, you're always going to be there with them. That kind of soothing, that kind of repetition helps them get through some of these ups and downs that they're experiencing. If they don't respond to the things you are trying, don't necessarily say, well, that doesn't work, I'm never going to try that again. Because what worked at 10 o'clock probably won't work at 11 o'clock. And it might work the next day, it might not work the next day. So I always say you have little slips of paper, little pieces of paper with little interventions. Try this, try that. You put them in your pocket, you pull out one, you try it. If it doesn't work, you don't throw it away, put it in your other pocket, because tomorrow it may work. This afternoon it may work. In 15 minutes it may work. Alzheimer's makes no sense. What you say at 10 o'clock, they smile and laugh. What you say at 10:05, they start to yell at you, or they start to cry. Said the same thing you did 5 minutes ago. You were with them the whole time. Nothing has changed except their reaction. So we keep trying these things. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. That's the journey of Alzheimer's. Will you get it right the first time sometimes? Yeah, and boy, do you feel good about it. Like, wow, look what I did. I'm great. And the next time you might empty your pocket and say, well, it's just not a good afternoon now, is it? But tomorrow will be better. Or an hour from now might be better. And that's the journey of Alzheimer's. And no one can do it better. There are no big tricks that anyone has that can wave a wand to take the behaviors totally away, or how you interact with somebody with these behaviors. You keep trying. And sometimes first time works, sometimes that pocket is empty. And the fourth step is to review and plan for the next time. Are there any triggers? And this is where keeping a little journal, keeping a piece of paper that this is the date, this is the time, nothing going on before, or where were you? Were you in their room? Were you, in an activity with other people in the room? Kind of hit those spots so that the next time it happens, you can compare. And try to logically, we try to logically figure out, is there a trigger for these reactions? And if there is a trigger, can I not get into these behaviors if I take the trigger away by giving a mid-morning snack, having them rest with music maybe at 3 or 4 in the afternoon. You know, are there triggers that we can do and acknowledge that we can kind of not get into these unfavorable behaviors that really can become quite something for not only the person going through it, but the caregiver as well. It can be very unpleasant. So, warning signs, did your responses work? Didn't it? What order did you do it in? What did you try first? What was last? When will you need to respond? You know, if we start to see restlessness, if we start to see agitation, if they start to look around, we can sense that things are building. So what can we do to kind of diffuse that? We can distract them onto something else. We can, if you're sitting talking to them in a room, maybe get up and change locations. And you don't ask them, do you want to go for a walk or do you want to walk down the hall? You get up and say, let's go down the hall. You take them by the arm and you start walking. Because if they say no, if you ask them, do you want to go? And they say no, you're dead in the water. You're never going to convince them to say yes. They said no, that's it. They're not doing it. So you don't ask yes, no questions. You take them by the arm, boy, we're going down. You know, did you see that sunshine at the end of the hall in that window? And that bird feeder's out there. I bet there might be some birds. You distract them on to something else. Also, if you're in a situation where they're getting mad at you and they're starting to verbalize their unhappiness with you, if you can step out of the room and have somebody else come in, oftentimes that will work. And the person coming in can say, if they're still complaining about you, they can sympathize. He did what? She said what? Oh, that's awful. Oh my goodness, no. They did that? Oh, I'm going to talk to them. That's not nice. You wait 10 minutes and come back in and they're usually happy to see you because they've forgotten all about the fact that they were mad at you. So oftentimes, and if you don't have somebody else to come in, just you stepping out of their eyesight sometimes will decrease. Turn the TV on, turn the music on. Music therapy is fantastic. It does so much for individuals with Alzheimer's, calming them, soothing them. So, as I said, get out. You can't argue with them because you're not going to win. All you're going to do is escalate the situation. So remove yourself. Go get a cup of tea for both of you. Go get a glass of water. Go get some cookies. Go do something. Come back and say, look what I have. Just ignore what was going on. Look what I have. It's going to be the best snack in the world. Boy, these cookies are so good. You're going to love them. And you go on like nothing happened. What's this going to do? Okay, these are just kind of a review of the 4 steps, and these things we're getting in or going backwards somehow. Are there any questions at this point? Or any behaviors that you are experiencing or have experienced that you wonder what could have been done? Anything, or any questions about Alzheimer's, period, whether it's behaviors or not? Yes.
You have a loved one who is in the early stages of Alzheimer's. What kind of paperwork do you need to be able to give the kinds of care that you're talking about, including locking your loved one up? Will a power of attorney do that, or do you have to have a court appointment? What do you do as a
Well, if you don't have a power of attorney or durable power of attorney, there's two different types of power of attorneys. There's one for financial and there's one for health. So there are two different types. So you would need to be power of attorney for health in order to be able to respond about meeting somebody's needs and so forth. If you're not if you don't have that, then we have things called guardianships where you can become a guardian for somebody, especially if that person, if let's say you're just good friends and that person doesn't have family members, you can become their guardian. That has to go through a legal system. I volunteered as guardian for a few years, and you have to go through the legal system. A judge has to appoint you and sign you up and everything in order to become their guardian. So, as I said, it depends on whether or not you can get that. And so going to a lawyer, talking to a lawyer is what I would suggest doing, and talking about future needs as all of us, as we age, face that. And who is going to make decisions for me when my health goes? Who have I chosen? And if it's legally done, it's much better than if it's just, even if it's a spouse or a child, it's still better if it's legally done. Then there are no questions about it. And even the families that are so close and you say, oh, my kids would never fight among each other. They'll never. I was a CCU nurse for a long time, and you'd get all the children or grown-up adults, but the person's children finally convinced on one thing, and then the child from California flew in, and what a mess. It all started all over again because they didn't agree on what should be done for dad or what should be done for mom, because they were sitting in this CCU bed, most of the time on a ventilator, and it's like, what are you guys going to do? And they couldn't agree. And so that, if you don't want that type of thing to happen, even though you don't think your family would do that, it's still better to have it legally decided. I did that. I'm a widow, so we have 3 children, and the last time, 2 are out of state, so the last time we were all together, I sat down with all 3 and said, I want to make sure that not our daughter's in Columbus, she's a nurse, so of course the 2 brothers turned to her for healthcare need, but I didn't want it to be any question about, are you sure mom said that? Are you sure that's what you wanted? So I made sure that I talked to all 3 at the same time, that these are my wishes, this is what I want, and all of you have heard it from my mouth. And this is, as I said, hopefully you'll follow through on it. So it's been legally done, but I also wanted to discuss it with them so that they're not second-guessing their daughter. Because when a crisis like that occurs, when you lose a loved one, that's not the time to try to make decisions and so forth. So and unfortunately, we live in a society that doesn't talk a lot about end of life and wishes and decisions. And so we kind of ignore, we're going to live forever. Well, no one lives forever. And so everyone's going to face this. Every family is going to face this. And so talking about it, making decisions, making sure everyone knows, and legalizing it all. We have elder lawyers, elder attorneys that specialize in working with the elderly on their financial things, on their health care wishes. So I would recommend, if you have lots of questions The Alzheimer's Association has a list. They won't recommend one person, but they do have a list of elder lawyers, attorneys in Central Ohio that you can, talk to and figure out who you would like to go with. And as I said, they are the specialists in seniors and getting everything legalized. I don't know if that answers your whole question. But as far as, when somebody needs a locked unit and so forth, most of the time that all comes down to safety, number one. Are they safe where they are? And when you can't say they're 100% safe, then you've got to say, all right, are they ready for the next step? Whether it's independent, whether it's assisted, whether it's memory care, to me, most of the time, it focuses on safety. And then secondly, on how much care they need. How much are they able to do for themselves yet? How safe are they? It all boils down to safety most of the time, or a big percentage of it does. Yes.
Everything you've said is really important, and I can't stress doing it as soon as you can. My husband lost the ability to sign his name, and it certainly would have been much better if we had filled out forms ahead of time.
Right.
There was no warning that this would happen. Right. The other thing is there were many phone calls that had to be made where the operator needed to have his permission for me to speak.
Yeah.
And there came a point that
right.
he couldn't do it.
Right. Absolutely. So, we hope those type of things never happen, but life happens. And it can happen at any age. My husband passed away at 65. Here 1 minute, gone the next. Sudden. No one ever dreamed it would happen. And so being prepared for future, being prepared for end of life, it really, you're doing your family a benefit. Because as I said, when there's a crisis and you lose a loved one, you don't want to have to make decisions then. You want everything to kind of be planned out so that you can just try to survive day by day, hour by hour with your loss. And that isn't the time to start trying to figure out things. And if you know somebody's wishes, it really helps in decision-making also if things aren't cemented, if things aren't legalized, and yet we don't talk about it. It's like, and I have had that with family members where they wouldn't talk about it, they pass away, and then it's like, I have to make decisions for them on what they want, even as a funeral or it's like, it's a terrible feeling to put on a loved one because it's like, well, I don't know what they want. Am I doing the wrong thing? Would they rather have this? Would they rather have that? And that's not the time to go through that kind of stuff when you're dealing with a loss of a loved one. So the more you can plan, it's a blessing to your family. Absolute blessing. My stepmother-in-law, she had everything done. She said, that file cabinet, that folder. Something happens to me, you just pick up that folder and everything was boom, 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 spelled out. And boy, does it help. I mean, after that, I said, boy, I never want that again. I don't want to have to go through what I went through before with a loved one when I had no idea what their wishes were and I had to make decisions. That it's, as I said, it's not the best scenario. Yes.
To go along with what the lady just said, do it while you're young. And I'm talking young, like 50, something
40.
like that. Long before that death or disability becomes a reality.
That's right.
And
I agree.
there are terrible things that happen in families because all the evil that has
Oh.
been suppressed through the years because of mama being around
Oh, I know.
suddenly pops up.
Oh,
And that's
absolutely.
where mama has to
Yeah, right,
participate
right.
in her own planning and have it all
Yeah.
properly legalized
Right,
so that it
exactly.
is
Yeah.
really clear. And so your advice right there was something that was
Yeah.
very
And
important.
you know who I hear that mostly from is our financial guy. I hear it mostly from him because he's now a longtime friend. He knew my husband really well, and now I'm dealing with him. And he's the one who says, "Boy, these family, these." He hears from these seniors, "Oh, my kids aren't gonna." And then he says, "Oh, brother," he says, "what I go through afterwards with the kids." He said, everyone thinks their family is going to be just fine and no one's going to fight over anything. No one's going to argue. No one's going to say that's wrong. They really didn't mean that. They wanted me to have that. All that kind of stuff. Yeah, as I said, early, absolutely early. I teach a palliative care nursing course, and part of that course, they have to do kind of a, I don't know, they listen to some scenarios and so forth on end of life issues. And it's bringing up how do you start talking about this with family members. And, I have a lot of students because most of them they're already nurses, so they're older and they're not 20-year-olds. And a lot of them say, I've never thought about that, but I'm 45, I'm 50. My husband and I really should be thinking about these things. And once you do it, then you don't have to think about it. It's done. It's, put it away and enjoy your life. But as I said, it is important, and you're helping your loved ones. You're not. It's something you don't want to think about, but it is reality. And as I said, no one gets out of this world alive, so it is something. And legally, signatures do become a big issue, or consent. Are they able? And a lawyer shouldn't take the signature of somebody who doesn't know what they're signing. So, people often say, why should I even get a diagnosis if you don't have a cause and you don't have a cure? Well, one of the reasons is it usually gets people moving to get their legal stuff done that they often put off. And it's like, well, if you get diagnosed in your early stage, get to your attorney, get all these forms done, get everything planned out so there's no question about your signature on these forms. And it kind of gets you moving when you start this journey. And sometimes it is something you put off. Absolutely, you put it off. And, accidents happen, life goes. I learned that personally. So, yes.
Hi there. Excuse me. As a caregiver, I would like to speak for a second about the behaviors. The behaviors are wearing, and that isn't half describing. It is absolutely exhausting.
It is. Yep.
And while you are trying these different approaches to their behavior, support is absolutely essential, whether it's support within the family, from friends, and also the need to have some respite time away from that situation. And I'll give a little plug for home health care here. Hiring an aide for a couple hours a week is absolutely essential to give you a break.
Absolutely.
Again, the behaviors have been very well described and very well listed.
They are
as to
totally draining.
Yes.
They wipe you out. They exhaust you. They irritate you. they anger you, they hit everything that you can possibly feel. And as a caregiver, the number one thing you have to do is care for yourself. And that means you have to, what I call, recharge yourself. And that is stepping out from that stress, out and from under that stress, whether it's an afternoon a week, whether it's a weekend away, whether it's 2 mornings a week, whatever, that you can do something for yourself that recharges you to keep you going. If you don't do that, oftentimes you don't survive this journey. And I've seen caregivers pass away before their loved ones because they're so exhausted, so stressed out. They haven't kept up with their doctor appointments. They're not sleeping. They're not eating properly. They're not doing any of those things that we know maintains our health. And you're not doing it, people feel so guilty. Like, oh, Wednesday afternoon, maybe I should stay. Maybe I shouldn't go. Maybe, he or she needs me. You're doing it for them. You're doing it so you can keep caregiving. If you don't replenish yourself, if you don't recharge yourself, you're going to burn out. And then you're going to be useless to your loved one.
I'd like to add one more thing. While you are working with your spouse or whoever it is that's going through the Alzheimer's dementia journey, many times husbands and wives don't share how the house runs, where the bills are, where the passwords are, the insurance policies, and it's a journey of trying to uncover and discover many of those things to keep your household going.
Yep.
So that's something that needs to be documented and discussed
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
before or with the end of life planning.
Right, absolutely. I realized that I was married, 43, 44 years, something like that. And I never really thought that much about he does his role, I do my role, until one minute he was gone and everything then was my responsibility. And it's like, but I've never done this before. He always did it. And it was quite a learning curve. I co-facilitate a men's support group. I'm the token woman there. And boy, it's not funny, it's not cute, but hearing the men, I had to learn how to wash clothes, and now I'm the cook. And, I was used to coming home to a cooked meal, and now, we eat my food, and doing all the shopping, it's, you have to learn those roles that in most marriages you kind of divide. I don't remember ever sitting down saying to my husband, well, you're going to do this and I'm going to do that, or how are we going to divide? It just kind of evolves. And then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, I've never, in all my, how old I am, and I've never done this before in my life. And it's like, wow, I never lived alone by myself until he passed away. It was like, you're how old and you've never lived alone? No, I've never lived by myself. And so, all those things, yes, they take on a lot. So the more you talk about it, the more you plan. And as this journey continues, their needs increase. That means your role as a caregiver increases. And what a lot of people put off memory care, they don't, oh gosh, I always said, we're going to care for each other. But oftentimes memory care actually, memory care often gives you a chance to go back to being a wife or being a husband when you're with them. And you're always their number one advocate, but you're not 24/7 caregiver. And that frees you up to be the wife again, or be the husband again, or be the daughter again, or be the son again. And sometimes that really helps you feel the closeness with your loved one, because 24/7 caregiving is draining and exhausting on this journey.
If I can just add here, the last two topics you've talked about lead directly to hoping that everyone here knows the Friendship Village has a fabulous, helpful set of documents and help through Ava's office called Navigating's Life Journey. And it was developed by residents here, starting with the Wellness Committee in about 2015. And it ends up being what you can have and your families can have, which is the most important, in your apartments, and that they can know where it is, which covers many, many, many of the contingencies of your life and your every aspect of your life that you need to have documents for, where they are and that they're up to date. And do check it out with Ava. It's
Yeah,
and
that's excellent, yeah.
it can end up
absolutely.
being a couple of notebooks on a shelf, so that when someone dies, you take those notebooks down and there it is in black and white.
Right. No, excellent. So needed, absolutely
And
needed.
if I can add to that, Ava is a great resource here on campus. She's our health and wellness navigator. If you have not met Kaylee yet, she is our new health and wellness navigator that will work alongside Ava. So please, please, please do reach out to both of them. They're a great resource.
It's not something anyone wants to think about, but it's so important. As I said, you're doing it for your loved ones. You're really helping them. It makes a big difference. Anything else that anyone can think of? All right, thank you for coming.